Patch 2.6.6 added 8 new legendary effects to the game, a new legendary gem, and revamped crafted sets. And so since last Thursday, we've been on PTR testing the best new ways to use these items, and I present to you the Blood and Essence Necromancer. The time has finally come. We finally have for you guys a build that literally has permanent uptime of Land of the Dead. We've done it. In the gameplay above, you're going to see us flying through GR100s, all intelligence paragon removed, with permanent uptime on Land of the Dead. So all the mobs stay frozen 100% of the time, and you just walk through the rift and pick up your loot. With patch 2.6.6, some new legendaries were added to the game that really spice things up for the Necro. So this build revolves around Land of the Dead, most importantly, 100% uptime, but also Corpse Lance and its interaction with the Pestilence 2-piece. Of course, the 2-piece Pestilence reads, each corpse you consume fires a Corpse Lance at a nearby enemy. And while Land of the Dead is up, we basically get all corpse skills can be used at will for 10 seconds. So we don't even have to have corpses. So the synergy between Land of the Dead and Pestilence 2-piece is actually insane. So basically we have 100% uptime on Land of the Dead, which means we have infinite corpses to spam Corpse Lances with. But it's obviously not just spam Land of the Dead and spam Corpse Lance. There's actually more going on here. Why is it called the Blood and Essence Necro? The Necro has a passive that's called Blood is Power. So after cumulatively losing 100% of your maximum life, all cooldowns are reduced by 20%. So you might think, well, all the mobs are frozen. How are you going to take damage? Well, we're going to do it to ourselves. We're using Blood Rush with Metabolism. Every single time you use a Blood Rush, that's 10% health cost. But more importantly, we're using Frailty Early Grave, which will cost 10 essence plus 10 health, which causes all mobs to die instantly at 18% health. So we're causing self-harm, proccing our own Blood is Power. We're also stacking up as much cooldown as we possibly can, obviously getting it on all of our gear. And of course, we're using Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac to proc even more cooldown reduction. So you might ask, well, what's your spender here? We're actually using Command Skeletons on Numlock. If you guys don't know what Numlock is, go and check out that video. To spam Command Skeletons against a target, and this procs Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. It's actually not even something you have to spam. You can just Numlock it. Just make sure you have a target. So basically, we're walking around, we're making sure everything's cursed with our curse, and we're spamming Corpse Lance against those big single targets like elites, blues, to make sure they die as fast as possible. And of course, since everything's frozen, you can kind of freely walk around and stand in the Oculus circles. You can stand in the Season 18 special effect circles. So hence the name Blood and Essence, because we're spending our health, or spending our blood, and we're spending our essence to get the cooldown back on Land of the Dead as fast as humanly possible. And again, to get that 100% uptime on Land of the Dead. So again, stacking cooldown, we're using Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac, we're inflicting self-harm to get Blood as Power. And it doesn't stop there. We're using the new Messerschmitt's Reaver, which says reduce the remaining cooldown of one of your skills by 1 second when you slay an enemy. And so since we're just killing absolutely everything we encounter, this thing procs like crazy. The rune on Corpse Lance we're going to use is Corpse Lance Brittle Touch. This basically just makes your crit 100% against all these targets you're just mowing down with all these Corpse Lances. We're going to make sure everything's cursed, not only because it inflicts self-harm and we get the 18% instant death, but it also is important to keep up for our Tribals Corroded Fang, which gives us 200% flat damage. Using Blood Rush with Metabolism, just so we can spam it even more. It gives 2 charges. Land of the Dead Frozen Lands, again, no brainer. Land of the Dead's crazy in this build. Plus, it's going to keep everything frozen. We're using Devour to Cannibalize. That's just to aid in consuming as many corpses as possible. You're consuming corpses by spamming Brittle Touch on elites, but also as you're just walking around, you're numlocking Devour, and that's eating corpses as well. And again, we're using Command Skeletons and Forcers to proc that Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. Other passives include Final Service. This is just so, you know, if we do die, we're saved once every minute. Wrathma Shield. This is so you can use Land of the Dead defensively. So if you know you're about to take just a big amount of damage, you can hit your Land of the Dead and just absorb all damage for 4 seconds. We're using Blood as Power. Again, we already explained why. And of course, Spreading Malediction, which just gives us bonus damage for each enemy curse. And again, our goal is here to just curse everything that you see. You can swap out for lower GRs, Fueled by Death for Wrathma Shield, and will make you faster. For gear, of course, we're wearing Pestilence 6-piece. Again, because that synergy, the 2-piece synergy is insane. Each enemy hit with your Corpse Lance increases your mitigation up to a maximum of 50%. And of course, basically just increases your flat corpse lance damage by 1,650%. In the cube, we're using Corpse Whisper Pauldrons, which corpse lance damage is increased by 30% for 3 seconds when you consume a corpse, max 20 stacks. So corpse will give you 600% at max stacks, which you're going to stay at 100% of the time because the corpse lances never stop flying. Now, 2 new additions you might not recognize because they're new in 2.6.6. We're using the Captain set. And the Captain set is crazy good for the Necro. So the Captain set reads 2-piece bonus. We get 20% cooldown and 20% resource cost. Resource cost we don't care about, but it is nice, and we'll explain why in just a second. 3-piece bonus, damage dealt is increased by a percentage of your cooldown reduction. So all that cooldown you're stacking on your gear, not the sheet. Don't listen to this. You're not getting 62% damage increase. You're getting all of your cooldown reduction on your gear added together as a damage modifier, which all of that added up with Goguk, with Paragon, with the Captain set, it's 115% damage modifier. And coming back to that 3-piece bonus, damage taken is reduced by a percentage of your cost reduction. Now, we're not speccing for this. We're not gearing for this in any way. We're going to have a base 30% because of Captains itself, plus your Paragon. So that's 30% reduced damage taken. I will say, getting a perfectly rolled Pestilent Shoulders with Invite, Corpse, lance damage, and cooldown reduction is pretty hard, and getting resource cost and cooldown is pretty easy on shoulders, so that's definitely something you probably want to keep in mind as you're trying to get a really good pair of shoulders. You can use resource cost, and it is good for you now. Charisma and Sentence, a no-brainer here. You get 100% base damage if they're snared, and triple that basically against anything like frozen, stunned, all that. And of course, everything's frozen all the time here, so we're getting 300% damage bonus all the time. Tragul's Crota Fang, we're wearing that, which basically gives us a flat 200% damage modifier for as long as the enemy's cursed. And again, your goal is to keep everything cursed. Lost Time, the offhand, this is weird. The offhand actually matters here, guys. Lost Time basically gives us more movement speed if we hit with a cold skill, stacking up to 5 times. So, if you get a 10% lost time, you're going to get 50% movement speed. So great synergy with this. So the offhand actually does matter here. It's not just a stat stick. Nemesis, again, it's just for that extra speed. I know we're not using Ingyam here, so it's crazy. Spawning Elite off a pylon is just, it adds to your clear times by a lot. Necklace, we're using the brand new Squirts necklace, which basically gives you 100% more damage, assuming you don't take damage. And again, if you guys haven't seen my PTR video, the way this works is just like the Endless Walk set. So there's like a teeter-totter, right, window. So if you take damage, you're not doing 100% damage anymore. If you continue to take damage, you go down to 0% added damage. Whereas if you're not taking damage, it starts to go back up until you hit that 100% increased damage. But of course, at the cost of taking 50% increased damage. So you might have gotten excited for a second when you saw, oh, wow, we're going to get 30% more mitigation because of Captain. And Necro's a pretty squishy class already. But we're actually effectively getting a net of negative 20% reduction than we normally have for, one of my builds because of Squirt's Necklace. Now, again, in this build, everything stays frozen like all the time. So you feel pretty tanky, but you're still very squishy. But just keep them frozen. And to make this all possible, because we are wearing 2 different sets here, which normally wouldn't be possible, we're using the Ring of Royal Grandeur in the cube, so we can get the full 3-piece bonus from Captain and the full 6-piece from Pestilence. For legendary gems, we're using Zai's Stone of Vengeance. The further you can be from the mobs, assuming there's no circle on the ground, the better, because it gives you more damage. We're using Bane of the Trapped, no brainer here. The best gem in the game, it's just flat damage. And Goguk, not only because it gives us more cooldown, and therefore cooldown gives us more damage because of the Captain set, so the synergy there is really good. We're also getting more attack speed, and attack speed does help our corpse lance to do more damage because it causes more corpses to be consumed per frame. And there's a corpse lance breakpoint spreadsheet I'll link in the description below. So as long as you hit certain attack speed breakpoints, your damage is going to significantly, noticeably increase. So stat priority, we'll go over real quick. For gloves, you'd actually want Quadfecta, the Dream, attack speed, crit damage, crit chance, cooldown reduction. For shoulders, the Dream, Invite, cooldown reduction with corpse lance damage. And again, as I was saying earlier, These can be pretty hard to get. You can find, invite, cooldown reduction, and resource cost reduction pretty easily. And again, that will help you because of the captain set. Helmet, invite, crit chance with the socket for diamond. Chest, invite, corpse lance damage with 3 sockets. Belt, not a very good one here, but invite, armor, and life percent with something like physical on the secondary, and pickup radius is always very, very nice. Pants, invite, armor, 2 sockets, and the same thing. Physical would be great on the secondary. Pickup radius really, really helps. Boots, invite, armor, and movement speed. There's really no great stats here. The bracers, this is a cold damage build, so we want that cold damage with invite, crit chance. Necklace, the dream here would be have cold damage, and crit chance with a socket. Obsidian ring can only roll one way, and you want to keep the attack speed, the crit chance, and the cooldown reduction, and roll out that resource for a socket. Crispy, this is going to be pretty tough to get to roll really well. In fact, you're probably better off most of the time running a Ring of Royal Grandeur because it's much, much easier to roll well. Because if you don't have like 94% on your Crispin's effect, then it's worth cubing 100% of the time. So if you can find something with like over 95% with 8 cooldown and like 50 crit damage, that's going to be the one to wear. On your weapon, you want a Fang that's so good that you can roll off the intelligence. Now, I will say, the nice thing is how many seasons have you played where you didn't get the maximum essence and the item became crap? We don't care about essence in this build. So that makes rolling a really good Trag'Oul's Corroded Fang actually a little bit easier. But again, we want something so good we can roll off intelligence. So the dream would be have damage percent, attack speed, cooldown reduction, and a socket. Your offhand, flat damage, intelligence, cooldown reduction, crit chance, corpse lance damage is the dream. Again, the play style here, it's not like Blightspear where you're an elite hunter. You're literally just killing absolutely anything and everything. Density is important. So you want to make sure you're killing as many things as possible per rotation on Land of the Dead, because everything you kill will reduce the timer on Land of the Dead. So the only time you'll kind of hiccup with this build is if those rare moments where you just get starved for density. At that point, you can really only just kind of bide some time until Land of the Dead comes back up and spam your command skeletons to get more Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac procs. But it really doesn't happen a lot, especially at our current cooldown reduction, which is 62%, and killing any targets with Reaver in the cube. The uptime is just nutso on Land of the Dead. The other thing that I will say that is absolutely insane about this build is I was able to hop on, a PTR character on the new season, and basically it felt like I was power leveling myself. This thing is insane for a seasonal starter build. And to add to that, Season 18, we start with Pestilence. So this is going to be the build to put together at the start of Season 18. You really don't even have to have a Trag'Oul's Corroded Fang to make this work. Reavers is going to be really easy to get because there's a 1 in 4 chance when you upgrade 2-hand axes to get it. Wearing something like an Echoing Fury can be really, really strong until you get that Trag'Oul's Corroded Fang. And you can even keep the Echoing Fury going when you're in Torment like 16, or it's just Torment farming for keys when you don't want to just be cursing everything. And I will say that is very, very smooth. Say you're wearing the Echoing Fury and you can swap out Frailty for the Blood Spear, which makes it even easier to keep up Land of the Dead. It's a very strong Torment farming build. But ultimately, the goal is to end up using this setup. But again, like I said, it's just insane. It's going to be so strong at the start of the season. You guys will see. But that's pretty much going to sum up the guide. It's awesome to be able to come up with a brand new build for you guys. It's been a long time since we got new items added to Diablo. So people are always asking me, why don't you make new guides? Because there hasn't been any new items for quite some time. So it's great getting back on PTR and actually theory crafting in Diablo 3. And the captain set is so good, it's basically going to be added to like every single build that we make. So, Blightspear's come back and it's just as strong as this. Pestilence, the Torment farming build has come back and it's insanely powerful. It can use Sage as well, which is a first time ever that's happened for the Necro. Necro can actually wear a Sage set. And of course, all those builds, that we've been making, the builds that we made for last season, those are now viable because of the new legendary gem. So, like the Law and Blood Nova, it's not dead in the water. It's actually still going to be really good. So Necro's going to have more builds than ever to Torment farm with, to Speed farm with. Unfortunately, pushing is still going to be, those same couple builds. But Speed farming, which is what I love to do, is more diverse than ever. That's going to do it, guys. As always, like, subscribe, come over to Twitch, ask your questions. I love you guys. Peace out.